So real quickly before we actually jump into the bulk of the video, I just wanted to mention, this next like 30 seconds that I haven't been able to make videos for the last 2 months because life has been in a really hectic place for me, and unfortunately I haven't really had a lot of time to record, but that's different now. We're good. With that being said, videos Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays again starting this week, and boom, to roll the intro or some shit. I don't know. So since I haven't made a video in a while, I thought, hey, why not sit back and have a chill-ass discussion about JoJo? Because I also haven't talked about the series in a long time, because unfortunately, at least with the manga right now, I'm kind of not disappointed, but more so just waiting for them to, get to something big. And it's not to say that stuff hasn't been happening, it's just that it feels like it's kind of slow right now, so that's whatever. But we're here to talk about good things. I'll sit here and make a video complaining about the JoJo and pacing and stuff at a later date. But what I wanted to talk about today was kind of just to rekindle the passion for JoJo and, just what made me like it so much. And I thought, let's have a discussion on what makes JoJo so good / appealing to people. And I think one of the main things that we could talk about real quickly is just a visual perspective of JoJo, whether you're looking at the manga or the anime, which most people look at the anime because they're just introduced to JoJo through the anime. A lot of people look at this art style and you think, oh, it's really weird, or oh, it's really good. And a lot of people, I know I have seen it and thought, this is kind of weird, but they've tried it out and they, started reading it, started watching it, and they ended up liking it a lot. But I also know a good portion of people, that have just looked at it once and been like, wow, this looks good. And I'm one of those people that looked at it at first and was kind of just like, whatever, and didn't care about it too much until a later point. Of course, when I got into it and then I started making videos and stuff like that, and when imported Eyes of Heaven in Japanese, it's what you guys always see for like background footage for these kinds of videos. Because unfortunately, the game didn't come to America for like another half a year. And when I got my copy in that morning, they actually ended up announcing that it was going to get localized. It was kind of hectic. I was a little upset because it was like, oh, but I got to get the game 6 months ahead of everybody else. And with that being said, even just what stuff like the game, see, JoJo was able to pull me in enough to get a Japanese copy of a game to a series that I was still catching up on, and it was able to just keep my interest just off of how it looked. And of course, other things factored into this that kept me, going for the series, and that's one of the strong points that I like about Araki and his work. But JoJo, from a visual perspective, being something that you watch or read, art style and things like that, visuals are important. And you want something that draws you in, and a lot of the character designs for JoJo are really cool. A lot of them are really wacky, and I think the fact that some of them are really wacky and all over the place is what ends up pulling in a lot of people, because they're just, different from your normal standard shonen tropes and different other manga or whatever, because it is, shonen for the most part. A lot of the designs have differences from most of these normal shonen that you're used to, while also still retaining some of the normal shonen things that you're used to. It's kind of weird how Araki's able to really get this blend in that makes it different and unique in his art style, but when it comes to character design itself, it's pretty unique to him. But it's also oh yeah, this definitely looks like a shonen villain. You look at Part 3 Dio, right? And you see him and you think of, other shonen villains. He just has that presence to him and that look. And of course he looks very different compared to people Frieza or Meruem. But Dio looks awesome. And he has one of those character designs that's able to pull you in. And I've always thought Dio looked really sick, and his stand, The World, also looks really cool. And that was another thing that I thought was really cool about JoJo is the shift from hamon to stance, because hamon is pretty much just your ki equivalent, your chakra equivalent, your nen equivalent, right? Whatever you want to call it. A bunch of different anime have some sort of life energy, and I did a video on this a couple months back. I'll probably put it in an end card thing that'll pop up on the screen. You can just click it in the last 15 seconds of the video if you haven't seen it, so go check that out. But it made this big shift from your normal standard life energy to do whatever I want to do. Give the name a musical reference just for the hell of it. You got fucking Aerosmith as a stand in Part 5, right? And it was just it was such a different concept to me at the time from different powers that you would see again in shonen manga, and it was something that made it stand out, which is probably one of the things that I liked about it so much once I got to part 3 was that the stands were very different from powers I was used to seeing. It was like, yeah, this is a part of this character's like soul and spirit and yada yada yada, and it's like, you know, their inner abilities and shit. So you've got like Star Platinum, he's super fast, he's got super quick reflexes. You know, he's super strong, he can punch through teeth of diamonds, he can stop time, like stuff like that was cool. You know, Avdol has a giant flaming chicken. Like, I thought, you know, Blaziken was always like a cool ass Pokemon growing up because he was a giant flaming chicken, and then boom, they made it into a stand. I almost said Persona because stands are also kind of like Personas, and I did a video also on that a couple months back, which you can check on my channel. But stuff like that was just really cool, and it stood out to me, and it was one of those things that kept me going for the series because I wanted to see more and more of the cool ass stands, and the way that they start doing the Villain of the Week format from part 3 onward for the most part, because all the other parts do it too. Like even up to part 7, Steel Ball Run has this Villain of the Week thing, and sure, some of the arcs are a lot longer, and some of the Villain of the Weeks are kind of just like in betweens with returning characters that aren't really Villains of the Week, and you know, they're reoccurring, and they show up more before they die or they win or whatever the hell happens to their character. But it still retains that formula of introduce a character, have like the next couple like 5-6 chapters be their fight, and then, you know, there's the outcome. And they would always display different stand abilities in really different and unique ways. That's one of the things that I always felt was strong about the JoJo series. It's like character introductions and stand introductions, for the most part, are always super fucking cool. Like Purple Haze's stand introduction when they're fighting Man in the Mirror and they're inside of the mirror world, and you see like Purple Haze just like crouched up on the floor like in the corner or whatever, and he's got like this like real like fucked up crazy ass face on his like a crazy ass facial expression, you know, and his face just looks like sick, and he's got like poison like goop dropping from his like mouth or whatever. Like stuff like that was just awesome. All right, at least I personally thought it was really cool. And you know, things like when they finally revealed the world, and you know, because Dio's like fucking with Polnareff on the stairs, and then when you finally see, oh, it's the world, and he's stopping time, like it's the coolest shit, dude. These introductions were just insanely well handled, and I've always respected Araki for being able to introduce characters like this and introduce abilities like this, because it's one of the things that I find is always good to have as a strong point is introductions, and being able to maintain that same level of like excitement from an introduction on a character to whenever they do something else, which is something that I respect a lot about One Piece, and the Eiichiro Oda, the mangaka of One Piece, always does. Is like he'll introduce a character, and whether or not they're super important at the moment or they're important later on, they're always doing something that will eventually catch up to like the main plot, and it's always something that is able to keep your attention on that character regardless of how long it takes for you to actually see them. Like we see Doflamingo in One Piece way earlier than his actual arc, and once you get to his arc, it's like, holy shit, this is the cool ass guy I've seen before, and he said some really cool stuff before, but now I get to actually see him do like a bunch of stuff, and that's awesome. And I like that JoJo's able to convey this same exact feeling. And again, they do it with like reoccurring characters. Like look at Stardust Crusaders with Whole Horse, right? Whole Horse, he's like a butt end of the jokes and stuff. Like he just kind of gets like screwed over in a bunch of hilarious ways, and he's like a comedic relief villain. And I always thought that was like really cool of an aspect for his character. But it's like you introduce him really early on, and he still shows up throughout the part, and he's always doing something funny, and like, you know, he tries to stand up to Dio, and Dio just like completely punks him out, and Whole Horse is all shook and shit. And stuff like that is just cool, but you still remember Whole Horse the whole time, and whether or not you're a big fan of Whole Horse is up to you, but he's memorable. And his stand, although it's just a gun, is extremely overpowered for what it is, because at the end of the day, JoJo characters are still normal humans for the most part, except for like, you know, the vampires or the Pillarmen and stuff like that, and guns hurt. Alright, you get shot, well, you're probably dying. Given you can survive like bullet wounds, I'm not saying you can't, but you know, you're probably gonna die if you get shot, dude. Just be honest. Depends on where you get shot, etc., etc., power of the gun, all that other, you know, technicalities. But in manga and anime, or in like video games, right? If you're a normal ass dude and some guy just pulls a pistol out and bam, shoots you point blank range, you're probably getting bodied unless you have like super duper crazy ass shonen protagonist powers. And another thing that I think catches people's attention with JoJo, more specifically with the anime, is the soundtrack. First off, I want to say that the openings are all great. Like every single one of them is good. I don't think there's a single bad opening, except for maybe and I know people are gonna hate me for this, and okay. I don't think it's bad, but it's my least favorite, and it's Great Days. It was cool at first, but like hearing it over and over again a lot, and hearing it weekly while watching Diamond is Unbreakable and doing my Diamond is Unbreakable reviews for the anime, it kind of just was like one of those things where I was like, whatever. And like the last little bit where it's like remixed for like Kira's part was kind of cool. I liked how they like Bites the Dust did the opening and stuff, like that was awesome. But overall, that opening was kind of just like whatever. But all of the openings are really good. Even with that one being like whatever to me, it's still super good, I think. And I feel that all of the music in general for the anime is just super appealing. Like whenever you're listening to something while watching like a JoJo episode, all the music is always fitting to whatever the hell's going on. Like when you start hearing that Stardust Crusaders theme whenever Jotaro is doing something, and he starts getting pissed off and he's about to like beat the shit out of somebody, it's so fitting, and it's gonna like happen. He's gonna rapid punch somebody, and it's like, oh yeah, let's go. Like the moment you hear that audio cue on that guitar build-up, you start to know that he's gonna do some crazy shit, and then you start hearing all the other stuff, and you go and listen to the anthology music, by the way, for the JoJo anime. That's like all like the extra like character themes and stuff like that. All of those anthology songs are super good. Like I use those all the time for videos. I've used the Kakuin one, which is Goodbye Nostalgia, which is done by the guy that does the part 2 opening, and I forget his name at the moment, but that one is like really sad and like really good, and I've used it a bunch of times in videos, and people still ask me, and I don't get upset at them for asking me for not knowing, because a lot of people didn't pay attention to the anthology music. So go do yourself that favor. But the music is really good, and I feel like especially when you're doing an anime, because this just pertains to the anime, you want to have music that's captivating, something that sticks to your brain, something that you remember. You don't want to have an absent soundtrack, and with JoJo it's the complete opposite from having an absent soundtrack. It's like part 1's got like all this cool ass like fancy music and stuff, part 2 has all this electronic like dubstep poppy type of stuff, and then like part 3's got like a bunch of different shit, and it's like real jazzy at times, and part 4 does the same thing, and it's awesome. It's so good, and it's really captivating, and it works for all the scenes that they use any music for. I don't care, there's no bad background music in the JoJo soundtrack, at least to me. Now for the most part, the JoJo storyline is pretty straightforward and to the point. It's like, hey, there's this bad guy, he wants to do this, we gotta stop the bad guy. But the way they present this from start to finish, at least I think in every single one of the parts, even the parts that I like the least, I still think they do a good job of overall presenting a plot line from point A to point B, and from point B to point C, and point C to point D, and then you're done, right? See what I did there? Point C to D, and then boom, you're done. So, and I haven't boomed in a while, so boom. But yeah, you get to that point where everything is done, everything wraps up nicely, and whether or not you like the outcome, and you're sad or you're happy about it, there's always something that goes down. Something important happens to somebody, and there's never like an empty like damn, like what happened type of feeling, unless you're reading Stone Ocean for the first time, which a lot of people get upset at that ending because it's kind of sad, I guess, to an extent. I understand why people would be upset with it, and I'll make a separate video talking about that like in detail. I'm not sure if I have already, I might have, but I feel like I haven't. But a lot of people get upset at that ending, and honestly I think that ending is great, because it does something where whether or not you like it, it's a fulfilled ending. It finishes off the part, it wraps up the storyline nicely, and it lets you move on to the next part right away. And it's good like that. It's good that it's set up so that when you get to the next part, it's done. And it's the same thing with part 3 and part 4 and part 5, and especially with part 5. Just seeing like Giorno sitting in the chair, and like Mista like right next to him or whatever, and like everybody else in like his gang that's just there, and Polnareff on like the windowsill and stuff. Like just seeing that is so satisfying and fulfilling. Like he's made it to the top. He accomplished his goal. Now he's doing whatever the hell he's got to do, and he's enjoying it. And he made it to that point that he wanted to make it to at the beginning of the journey. And it's just like that experience of seeing Giorno as a character grow and get from point A to point B to point C to point D and be done with everything by the end of it and be the boss. It's awesome. It's really good. And I feel like that's one of the things that captivates people with the series, because I know a lot of people say they don't like part 1, but I think that's complete bullshit, because if you didn't like part 1, then you wouldn't have kept on going to part 2, and then to part 3, and then to part 4, and part 5, 6, 7, and then 8, You wouldn't keep going if the base of the series was not enjoyable to you in one aspect or another, because the baseline of the series from part 1 still continues on. with the rest of the series. They just build upon that and, you know, add more. It's still the foundation of the series. It still is what holds up everything else. And, you know, I guess the House of JoJo is what we'll call it, you know. Part 1 is the foundation, and, you know, Part 2 is like the basement floor, Part 3 is like the main floor, because, you know, a lot of people are into it. Part 4 is getting up, and, you know, you just keep going up and up and up and up, right? And it does a lot of good things for the series. And I thought it was great that they kept these tendencies, no pun intended, in the next part, and they were able to, you know, use this baseline of, hey, you're going to do this and this and this, and this is going to be a reoccurring theme, and this is going to be a reoccurring theme, and there's going to be a Zeppeli, and blah, 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 and there's always going to be a Zeppeli-like character in all the parts, and they're going to have this role to help out the Joestar, you know, just stuff like that. It's good. It's very well done, and I'm happy that it's done like that, because, again, it keeps people interested, and it captivates you. It's really good at being able to just keep you interested all the time. Like, of course, there's parts in JoJo that I think are boring for a little bit, briefly, alright? I know some people drag it on and make it seem like it's the most uninteresting shit in the world. Like, I know a lot of people do that with Part 6, but I still think that there's a lot of stuff that's being said and explained about stands and stand abilities and the characters that's enough to keep me interested to want to keep going. I've never gone through JoJo and been at a point where I'm like, oh, I just want to drop the series completely and be serious about it, you know? It's able to keep my retention, just like, I don't know, maybe me in videos. I think I keep your guys' retention for the most part. People seem to like my stuff. You guys are still here after such a long time. I love you guys and appreciate you guys. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about JoJo overall as a series. I still think that it's great. Anybody that says, you know, oh, it's bad because of the fan bases are bad for anything. There's always a bad side and a good side of things. There's bad people everywhere you go in life. That's how life works. With that being said, once again, like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, go down below in the comments and let me know what you guys think about JoJo as a whole, as a series, what you think it handles well, what you think it handles poorly. You know, comments are always up for discussion and debate. It's always fun to read, you know, interesting things that people can say. With that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Thank you.